At 35,000 feet over the Pacific, both pilots collapsed unconscious. Behind the locked cockpit door, 198 passengers slept peacefully, unaware their lives now depended on an 11-year-old girl who'd never flown before. She had 9 hours of fuel. And zero margin for error. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. Phoenix Sky Airways Flight 827 departed from Los Angeles International Airport at 11:47 p.m. on a clear November night. The Boeing 777-200ER was scheduled to arrive in Tokyo Narita 11 hours and 22 minutes later. In the cabin sat 198 passengers, businessmen traveling to meetings, families visiting relatives, tourists eager to explore Japan, and an elderly couple celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. In the galley, 6 flight attendants prepared for a long night of service. They had already completed the safety demonstration. Now they moved through the aisles with drinks and blankets, helping passengers settle in for the overnight journey across the Pacific. But the most unusual aspect of Flight 827 wasn't visible to any of the passengers. Behind the locked cockpit door, in the small jump seat normally reserved for off-duty pilots or FAA inspectors, sat 11-year-old Emma Rodriguez. She wore pink pajamas printed with cartoon airplanes. Her dark hair was pulled into 2 braids. Her backpack rested by her feet, containing her stuffed elephant named Peanut, her iPad loaded with movies, and the aviation book her parents had given her that morning for her birthday. "Emma, baby, are you comfortable back there?" her mother asked, glancing back from the co-pilot seat. "Yes, Mom. This is amazing." Emma grinned, her gap-toothed smile wide and genuine. Her mother, Captain Maria Rodriguez, 39 years old, had been flying commercially for 14 years. She was one of the youngest female pilots to command a Boeing 777. Her dark eyes were sharp and intelligent. Her hands moved over the controls with practiced confidence. In the captain's seat sat Emma's father, David Rodriguez, 42 years old, with 18 years of flying experience. His salt and pepper hair was cut military short. His voice was calm and steady, the kind of voice that made passengers feel safe even in turbulence. Together, they made an exceptional team. They had flown together for 5 years. They anticipated each other's movements. They communicated with the efficiency of people who lived and worked together, who trusted each other completely. And they both loved their daughter more than anything in the world. "Remember, Emma," David said, adjusting the autopilot settings, "nobody can know you were in the cockpit. This is our special secret." "I know, Dad. I won't tell anyone. I promise." Emma understood the seriousness of the rules they were breaking. FAA regulations were crystal clear: no unauthorized persons in the cockpit. Especially not children. Especially not during international flights over the ocean. But it was her 11th birthday. Her parents had wanted to give her something special, something she would remember forever. They had done it twice before on nearly empty late-night flights. They trusted themselves. They trusted their aircraft. They believed the risk was minimal. They had no idea that within 90 minutes, both of them would be unconscious, and their daughter would be the only person awake who could save 204 lives. "Dad, how high are we now?" Emma asked, looking at the instrument panel that glowed in soft blue and green light. "We just passed through 32,000 feet. We'll level off at 35,000 in a few minutes. That's almost 7 miles straight up. Higher than Mount Everest." "That's right, smart girl." Maria smiled at her daughter. "You've been studying." Emma had always been fascinated by her parents' work. While other kids played with dolls and video games, Emma built model airplanes. While they watched cartoons, she watched cockpit videos on YouTube. She knew the difference between a Boeing and an Airbus. She could identify airplane types just by the shape of their wings. Her parents had started teaching her basics when she was 8 years old. Nothing serious. Just educational. How to read an altimeter. What the different warning lights meant. How autopilot worked. The phonetic alphabet: Alpha, Bravo, Charlie. Just in case you want to be a pilot someday, her father had said. But Emma didn't want to be a pilot. She wanted to be a veterinarian. She loved animals more than airplanes. She spent her allowance on books about dogs and cats. Her room was covered with posters of puppies. Still, she absorbed everything her parents taught her. She had a photographic memory. Numbers and facts stuck in her brain like glue. She remembered conversations word for word. Teachers at school called her gifted. Now, at 35,000 feet above the Black Pacific Ocean, that gifted memory was about to become the only thing standing between 204 people and a watery grave. The aircraft leveled off at cruising altitude. The ride was smooth. Outside the windshield, stars filled the sky in impossible numbers. The moon hung low over the horizon, painting a silver path across the invisible ocean below. "It's so beautiful," Emma whispered. "It never gets old," Maria agreed. "Your dad and I have flown this route maybe 50 times, and I still love this view." David checked the navigation display. "We're 847 miles west of Los Angeles. Right on schedule. Emma, you see this screen here?" He pointed to the navigation display. "This shows exactly where we are. The little airplane symbol in the center, that's us. The magenta line is our route to Tokyo." Emma leaned forward, studying the display. "What are all those numbers?" "That's our ground speed, 485 knots. That's about 558 miles per hour. And this number here, that's our estimated time to Tokyo, 9 hours and 41 minutes. We're going so fast." "We are. At this altitude, the air is thin, so we can go faster with less fuel burn. It's very efficient." Maria reached for her water bottle and took a sip. Then she frowned. "My head feels strange." David looked over at her. "Strange how?" "I don't know. Foggy maybe. Pressure." She rubbed her temples. "Like the start of a headache. You feeling okay? Do you need some aspirin?" "Maybe. I just feel off." Maria blinked several times. "My vision is blurry too." David felt a small flutter of concern. "We should check the cabin pressure. Maybe there's an issue with the environmental system." He scanned the overhead panel. Every indicator showed normal. Cabin altitude, 6,500 feet. Pressurization system, green. Oxygen levels, normal. Air conditioning, functioning perfectly. "Everything looks good," he said. But even as he spoke, he felt something strange himself. A heaviness in his head. A tingling in his fingers. Emma noticed her parents exchanging worried glances. "Are you guys okay?" "Yes, sweetie," Maria said quickly. "Just a little tired. It's been a long day." But it wasn't tiredness. What they were experiencing was carbon monoxide poisoning, though none of them knew it yet. 6 months earlier, during routine maintenance, a technician had incorrectly installed a seal in the environmental control system ducting. The seal had gradually degraded during flight operations. Tonight, during the climb to altitude, it had finally failed completely. Exhaust fumes from the auxiliary power unit were leaking into the cockpit air supply through the damaged seal. Carbon monoxide molecules, each one a deadly combination of carbon and oxygen, flooded into the cockpit with every breath the pilots took. Carbon monoxide is called the silent killer. It has no smell, no taste, no color. You can't see it. You can't detect it. By the time you realize something is wrong, it's often too late. The molecule binds to hemoglobin in the blood 200 times more effectively than oxygen. It replaces oxygen in the bloodstream. The brain, which requires constant oxygen to function, begins shutting down. Vision fails. Coordination disappears. Thinking becomes impossible. Consciousness fades. Both pilots were breathing it with every breath. The concentration was building in their blood with every passing second. "David, something's really wrong," Maria said. Her voice sounded slurred. I can't think straight." David tried to respond, but his tongue felt thick in his mouth. "I feel it, too. Check the..." He couldn't remember what he wanted to say. The instrument panel swam in front of his eyes. His hands felt like they weighed 100 pounds. Emma's heart started pounding. "Mom? Dad? What's wrong?" Maria tried to turn toward her daughter, but the movement was slow and uncoordinated. "Emma, something's wrong with us." Her eyes were unfocused. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the cool cockpit temperature. "Mom, you're scaring me." David reached for the oxygen mask compartment above his seat. His training, buried deep in his subconscious, screamed at him, "Oxygen. Get oxygen." But his hand moved in slow motion. His fingers fumbled with the latch. He couldn't make them work properly. "Can't breathe right," he mumbled. "Emma, radio, get help." "Dad, what do I do?" "Dad." Maria's eyes rolled back in her head. Her body went completely limp in the seat, held upright only by her shoulder harness. Her head fell forward onto her chest. "Mom." Emma screamed. "Mom, wake up." David turned his head toward his daughter with enormous effort. His face was deathly pale. His lips had a slight blue tinge. Sweat poured down his face. He tried to speak, but only a whisper came out, "Radio. Emma, help us." His eyes closed. His head dropped forward. His hands slipped from the control yoke and fell into his lap. Both pilots were unconscious. The Boeing 777, weighing 547,000 pounds and traveling at 558 miles per hour, continued flying straight and level on autopilot. The engines hummed steadily. The navigation system followed its programmed route toward Tokyo. Every system functioned perfectly. Except the two people who knew how to land it were gone. Emma Rodriguez, 11 years old, 4 feet 9 inches tall, 82 pounds, sat frozen in the jump seat. Her parents weren't moving. The only sound was the steady whisper of air through the vents and the distant hum of the engines. She was alone. Completely alone. With 198 passengers sleeping peacefully in the cabin behind her, unaware that the pilots had just fallen unconscious. With 9 hours and 38 minutes of fuel remaining. With 847 miles of dark Pacific Ocean below her. With absolutely no idea what to do. For exactly 15 seconds, Emma couldn't move. She sat paralyzed in the jump seat, staring at her parents' motionless bodies. Her mother's head hung at an unnatural angle. Her father's hands had slipped off the controls and dangled at his sides. The cockpit lights glowed softly. The instruments blinked and displayed their information. The autopilot continued flying the airplane with mechanical precision. Everything looked normal. Everything except her unconscious parents. Then Emma's paralysis broke. "Dad!" She lunged forward, unbuckling her seatbelt so fast the metal buckle cut into her thumb. "Dad, wake up! Wake up!" She grabbed his shoulder and shook him as hard as she could. His body moved limply, but his eyes stayed closed. His face was covered in sweat. "Please wake up. Please, please, please." Tears streamed down Emma's face. She turned to her mother. "Mom. Mom." She shook her mother's shoulder, then her arm, then tried to lift her head. Nothing worked. Both parents were completely unresponsive. Emma's breath came in short, panicked gasps. Her heart hammered so hard she could feel it in her throat. Her hands shook uncontrollably. Are they dead? The thought hit her like a physical blow. Are my parents dead? She pressed her hand against her father's chest, feeling for a heartbeat the way she had seen doctors do on TV. For a terrifying moment, she felt nothing. Then, there. A steady thump against her palm. He's alive. She checked her mother the same way. Another heartbeat, steady and strong. They're not dead. They're just asleep. Unconscious. Why? What happened? Emma forced herself to think through her panic. Her father's last words echoed in her mind, radio. Get help. Okay. Okay. Use the radio. Call for help. But Emma had never used an airplane radio in her life. She had watched her parents do it hundreds of times, but watching and actually doing were completely different things. She looked at the radio panel in the center console. 3 different radios, each with its own frequency display and knobs. Numbers glowed in digital displays, 129.4, 131.8, 121.5. Which one? Which frequency? Emma tried to remember the videos she had watched, the conversations she had overheard. Her father had mentioned something once about an emergency frequency. Every pilot monitored it. Air traffic control listened to it constantly. What was it? Think, Emma. Think. 121.5, that was it. The emergency guard frequency. She looked at the radio panel again. One of the radios already showed 121.5. The third radio. Did that mean it was already tuned to the emergency frequency? Emma didn't know if she needed to do anything special. Did she just press a button and talk? Was there a specific procedure? Her father's voice in her memory, always identify yourself. Always say who you are and what you need. Okay. Emma reached for the transmit button on the control yoke, the button her father always pressed with his thumb when he talked on the radio. Her hand was shaking so badly she could barely hold it steady. She pressed the button and opened her mouth to speak. Nothing came out. Her throat was too tight with fear. She tried again. Hello. She released the button and waited. Only static crackled through the overhead speaker. No one answered. Emma's heart sank. Maybe the radio wasn't working. Maybe she was doing it wrong. Maybe no one was listening. She pressed the button again, and this time her voice came out louder, more desperate. Hello? Is anyone there? Please, I need help. She released the button and held her breath. Static. Nothing but static. Then, aircraft calling on 121.5, this is Oakland Air Traffic Control Center. Identify yourself. Emma almost sobbed with relief. Someone answered. Someone could help. She mashed the transmit button with both thumbs. My name is Emma Rodriguez. I'm on flight 827 to Tokyo. My parents are the pilots and they both fell asleep or unconscious or something and I can't wake them up and I don't know what to do and I'm really scared and please help me. The words tumbled out in a breathless rush, all running together. Emma was crying now, tears dripping off her chin. A brief pause. Then a different voice, older and much calmer. Emma, this is Oakland Center. My name is Controller James Mitchell. I need you to take a slow breath and calm down for me. Can you do that? I'll try. Good girl. That's very good. Now, Emma, I need you to tell me exactly what happened. Start from the beginning and tell me everything. Emma took a shaky breath. We were just flying normal. Everything was fine. Then my mom said her head felt weird. My dad felt it too. Then Mom's eyes closed and she fell forward and then my dad tried to talk but he couldn't and he told me to use the radio and then he closed his eyes too. I shook them and yelled at them but they won't wake up. Her voice broke. I don't know what's wrong with them. Okay, Emma. You're doing great. I need you to check something for me. Look at your parents. Are they breathing? Emma leaned forward and stared at her mother's back. For a horrifying second, she couldn't tell. Then she saw it, a slight rise and fall of her mother's shoulders. Yes. They're breathing. Excellent. That's very important. Are they wearing their oxygen masks? Emma looked. No. They're not wearing any masks. Okay. Emma, look around the cockpit. Above or beside the pilot's seats, there should be oxygen masks stored in a compartment. Can you find them? Emma stood up, bumping her knee on the center console. She searched frantically. Above her father's seat, she saw a small panel marked Oxygen. She grabbed the handle and pulled. The panel popped open, and 2 green oxygen masks dropped out on coiled hoses. I found them. I see 2 masks. Perfect, Emma. Now, I need you to put those masks on your parents' faces. Pull them over their nose and mouth, then hook the elastic strap behind their head. Can you do that? Yes, I can do that. Emma grabbed the first mask and stretched it toward her father. The elastic was stiff and hard to manage with her shaking hands. She fumbled with it, nearly dropping it twice. Finally, she got it over his face and hooked the strap behind his head. The mask covered his nose and mouth completely. She did the same for her mother, working faster now. Within 30 seconds, both parents wore oxygen masks. Okay. I did it. They're both wearing masks now. Excellent work, Emma. You're doing everything exactly right. Now, the oxygen will help them. It's going to push fresh oxygen into their lungs and help clear out whatever is making them unconscious. How long until they wake up? Controller Mitchell hesitated. It might take 15 to 30 minutes. Maybe longer. Emma, I need to ask you something very important. Do you know anything about flying airplanes? Emma's stomach twisted into knots. A little. My parents taught me some things. I know some of the instruments. But I've never actually flown before. That's okay. That's more than most people would know. Emma, I need you to look at the instrument panel in front of you. Do you see a display that shows altitude? Emma scanned the instruments. The primary flight display right in front of the captain's seat showed multiple pieces of information. On the right side, she saw a number in a yellow box, 35,000. Yes. It says 35,000. Perfect. That's your altitude in feet. Now, do you see a number for airspeed? On the left side of the same display, another number, 485. It says 485. Excellent, Emma. That's 485 knots, which is your speed through the air. You're doing great. Now, I need to explain something to you. The airplane you're in has something called autopilot. Do you know what that is? Yes. It's like the computer flies the airplane. Exactly right. Right now, the autopilot is flying the airplane. It's holding your altitude at 35,000 feet. It's keeping your speed at 485 knots. It's following the flight plan your parents programmed before takeoff. The airplane is flying itself right now. Do you understand? Yes. This is very important, Emma. You don't need to fly the airplane right now. The autopilot is doing that. Your job is just to watch and wait for your parents to wake up. Okay. Okay. Emma felt a tiny bit of relief. She didn't have to fly. The computer was flying. Good. Now, Emma, I need some information from you. Can you tell me your exact position? Emma looked at the navigation display. Her father had shown her how to read it. In the top corner, she saw numbers, N3542W12817. It says N3542W12817. Perfect. That's 35 degrees 42 minutes north, 128 degrees 17 minutes west. You're about 850 miles west of Los Angeles, flying over the Pacific Ocean. Do you see land outside the window, or just darkness? Emma looked through the windshield. Only darkness. Just dark. I can't see anything except stars. That's because you're over the ocean and it's nighttime. There's nothing to see. That's normal. Now, Emma, I need you to find the fuel gauges. They're usually on a panel above your head. Can you see them? Emma tilted her head back and looked at the overhead panel. It was covered in switches, lights, and displays. Her father had pointed out the fuel gauges once. They were 4 circular gauges with needles, labeled Fuel QTY. I see them. There are 4 of them. Good. What do the needles show? Emma read the numbers. 51,000, 52,000. 49,000, and 50,000. Okay. That's about 202,000 pounds of fuel total, which converts to roughly 67,000 kilograms. That gives you approximately 9 hours and 30 minutes of flying time before the fuel runs out. Emma's relief vanished. What happens when the fuel runs out? Emma, your parents are going to wake up long before that happens. The oxygen is already helping them. But I need you to understand something. If, for some reason, your parents don't wake up soon, we're going to need your help to land this airplane. Do you understand what I'm saying? Emma's vision blurred with tears again. Her voice came out small and terrified. You want me to land the plane? Only if your parents don't wake up. And if that happens, you won't be alone. I'm going to be right here with you, talking you through every single step. We also have expert pilots here who fly Boeing 777s every day. They know this airplane inside and out. They're going to tell you exactly what to do, and we're going to guide you through it. But Emma, I need to know, can you be brave enough to try if we need you to? Emma looked at her unconscious parents. She thought about the passengers sleeping in the cabin behind her. She thought about Peanut, her stuffed elephant, sitting in her backpack just a few feet away. She wanted to grab Peanut and hug him and pretend this was all a nightmare. But it wasn't a nightmare. This was real. 204 people were depending on her. Including her mom and dad. Yes, Emma whispered. I can try. That's my brave girl. Now, let's start with some basics. In the Oakland Air Traffic Control Center, Controller James Mitchell stared at his radar screen, watching the data tag for Flight 827 move steadily westward across the Pacific. His shift had started normally 4 hours ago. He had handled dozens of flights, all routine. Now he was managing the most critical emergency of his 23-year career. Around his station, the control room had transformed into a crisis command center. 3 supervisors clustered behind him. 2 FAA aviation safety inspectors had arrived within 10 minutes of Emma's first call. A conference line connected them to Boeing's emergency technical support team in Seattle. Another line reached Phoenix Sky Airways Operations Center. But the most important person now sitting beside Mitchell was Captain Richard Hayes. Captain Hayes, 58 years old, had been flying Boeing 777s for 22 years. For the last 11 years, he had worked as a check airman, training and evaluating other pilots. He had logged over 18,000 hours in various Boeing aircraft. He knew the 777 better than he knew his own car. He had trained pilots from dozens of countries. He had seen every conceivable scenario in simulators. But he had never imagined trying to talk an 11-year-old child through landing a wide-body jet. James, let me talk to her, Hayes said quietly. Mitchell nodded and keyed the microphone. Emma, this is Controller Mitchell again. I have someone here who I want you to meet. His name is Captain Richard Hayes. He's a Boeing 777 pilot, just like your parents. He's going to help us figure this out. I'm going to let him talk to you now, okay? Okay, came Emma's small voice through the speaker. Hayes took the microphone, adjusting his headset. Hello, Emma. You can call me Captain Hayes. First, I want to tell you that you're doing an amazing job. Your parents would be very proud of you. Thank you, sir. Emma, I've been flying Boeing 777s for over 20 years. I know this airplane like the back of my hand. I know every button, every switch, every system. So when I tell you to do something, I want you to trust me completely. Can you do that? Yes, sir. Good. Now, I need to understand exactly what happened to your parents. You said they both became unconscious at about the same time, is that correct? Yes. My mom said her head felt strange. Then my dad felt it too. Then they both just fell asleep. Hayes exchanged glances with the FAA inspectors. Did either of them mention anything unusual before that? Any smells, any problems with the air conditioning, anything at all? Emma thought hard. No. Mom just said she felt dizzy and her head hurt. That's all. Okay. Emma, based on what you've told me, I believe your parents are suffering from carbon monoxide poisoning. Do you know what that is? I think so. It's a bad gas that makes people sick. That's exactly right. It's a gas that has no smell and no color, so you can't see it or smell it. Somehow, it got into the cockpit air. When people breathe it, it makes them very sleepy and eventually unconscious. The good news is that the oxygen masks you put on them are giving them pure, clean oxygen. That oxygen will push the carbon monoxide out of their blood, and they should wake up. When? Hayes chose his words carefully. It depends on how much carbon monoxide they breathed. It could be 20 minutes. It could be an hour. We don't know exactly. But Emma, while we're waiting, I need to teach you some things about the airplane. Is that okay? Yes, sir. Perfect. Now, I want you to tell me what you see. Look at the instrument panel directly in front of the captain's seat, where your father was sitting. Do you see a large display screen? Yes. There are two big screens. Good. The one on the left is called the Primary Flight Display, or PFD. That's the most important one right now. It shows your altitude, your airspeed, and your attitude. Attitude means whether the airplane is level or tilted. Do you see a white line in the middle that divides the screen into a blue half on top and a brown half on bottom? Emma studied the display. Yes, I see it. Perfect. That's called the artificial horizon. The blue part represents the sky. The brown part represents the ground. That line where they meet shows you if the airplane is level. Right now, if that line is perfectly horizontal, it means your airplane is flying level. Is it horizontal? Yes, it's straight across. Excellent. That means the autopilot is doing its job keeping the airplane level. Now, on that same display, on the right side, you should see a number in a yellow box. That's your altitude. What does it say? 35,000. Perfect. That means you're at 35,000 feet, which is where you should be. As long as that number stays at 35,000, you know the airplane is maintaining altitude. Now, on the left side of that same display, you should see another number. That's your airspeed. What does it show? 485. Excellent. That's 485 knots, which is a good cruising speed for a 777. Emma, here's what I need you to understand, as long as those numbers stay steady, everything is fine. The autopilot is doing all the work. You don't need to touch anything. You just need to watch and tell me if anything changes. Can you do that? Yes, sir. Good girl. Now, I'm going to ask you to do something that might seem strange. I want you to look around the cockpit and tell me if you see any red or amber warning lights. Any lights that are lit up and blinking or glowing. Emma scanned the overhead panel, the instrument panels, the center console. Dozens of lights and switches, but everything looked normal. Then she noticed something on the central warning panel. There's an amber light that says, "Air cond, is that bad?" Hayes felt his stomach tighten. That's not critical, but it confirms my suspicion. Emma, somewhere in the air conditioning system, there's a leak that let carbon monoxide into the cockpit. But here's the important thing, the carbon monoxide only affected the cockpit. The cabin behind you, where all the passengers are, has a separate air supply. They're completely safe. So the passengers are okay? Yes. Everyone in the cabin is fine. They don't even know there's a problem. And we want to keep it that way for now. We don't want to panic them. They're sleeping peacefully, and we want them to stay that way. Okay. Emma, I have a question. Are you sitting in the jump seat behind your parents, or are you in one of the pilot seats? I'm in the jump seat. All right. I need you to do something for me. Very carefully, I want you to move into the co-pilot seat, where your mother is sitting. Can you do that? Emma looked at her unconscious mother slumped in the co-pilot seat. But my mom is there. I know, sweetheart. But we need you in that seat so you can reach the controls if you need to. Your mom is strapped into her seat with the harness, and she has an oxygen mask on, so she's safe. You're going to sit right there with her. You'll be shoulder to shoulder. Is that okay? I guess so. Good. Take your time. Move slowly and carefully. Don't bump any switches or controls. Just slide into that seat next to your mom. Emma unbuckled from the jump seat and carefully stepped forward. The cockpit was small and cramped. She had to squeeze past her unconscious father. She climbed into the co-pilot seat, pressing up against her mother's limp body. It felt wrong and scary sitting in her mother's seat, but she did it. Okay, I'm in the seat. Perfect. Now, put on your seatbelt and shoulder harness. Make sure you're strapped in securely. Emma fumbled with the complex 4-point harness. It took her 3 tries to get all the buckles connected, but finally she clicked them into place. The straps held her firmly in the seat. I'm buckled in. Excellent, Emma. You're doing everything perfectly. Now, I want you to look at the panel between the 2 pilot seats. That's called the center console. Do you see a small panel with lots of buttons and knobs? That's the autopilot control panel. Emma looked down at the center console. There was indeed a panel covered in buttons, knobs, and switches. I see it. Good. On that panel, you should see several windows that display numbers. Those show the autopilot settings. There should be a window labeled Alt for altitude. What number does it show? 35,000. Perfect. There should also be a window labeled SPD for speed. What does that show? Emma found it. 485. Excellent. And finally, there should be a window labeled HDG for heading. That's the direction the airplane is flying. What does that one show? 261. Good. That means you're flying on a heading of 261 degrees, which is roughly west. All of those settings are what your parents programmed before they became unconscious. The autopilot is following those settings perfectly. So everything is okay? Hayes hesitated. Everything is okay for now, Emma. The autopilot will keep flying the airplane for many more hours. But eventually, you're going to need to land. An autopilot can't do that by itself. But my parents will wake up by then, right? I hope so, Emma. I truly hope so. But we need to prepare you, just in case. We need to teach you how to land this airplane. Emma's hands gripped the armrests of the co-pilot seat so tightly her knuckles turned white. I don't know if I can do that. Emma, listen to me. Right now, 198 passengers are sleeping peacefully in the cabin behind you. They have families waiting for them. They have children and parents and friends. Your own parents are sitting right next to you, breathing but unconscious. All of those people are depending on you to be brave. I'm just a kid. I'm only 11. I know. But you're a very smart 11-year-old. Your parents taught you about airplanes. You know more than you think you do. And Emma, you won't be alone. I'm going to be with you every single second. I'm going to tell you exactly what to do, exactly when to do it. All you have to do is listen to my voice and follow my instructions. Can you do that? Emma looked at her unconscious mother beside her. She thought about all the passengers sleeping in the cabin. She thought about crashing into the dark ocean. I'll try, she whispered. That's all I ask. Now, let's start preparing. Captain Richard Hayes stood behind Controller Mitchell, staring at the radar screen. Flight 827 was now 1,100 miles west of Los Angeles, moving steadily farther from land with every passing minute. Behind him, the crisis room had grown even more crowded. A Boeing technical representative was on speakerphone. The Phoenix Sky Airways chief pilot had arrived in person. An FAA accident investigator recorded everything. And in the cockpit of Flight 827, an 11-year-old girl sat in the co-pilot seat, her small hands trembling, waiting for instructions that would determine whether 204 people lived or died. Hayes picked up the microphone. Emma, are you ready to start learning? I think so. Good. The first thing I need to teach you is how to control the airplane manually. The autopilot is flying right now, but eventually you're going to need to take over. Do you understand? Yes, sir. In front of you, you should see a U-shaped control yoke. It looks like a steering wheel, but only the top half. Do you see it? Emma looked at the control yoke in front of her. It was large and intimidating. Yes, I see it. That yoke controls two things, pitch and roll. Pitch means nose up or nose down. If you pull the yoke toward you, the nose goes up and the airplane climbs. If you push it away from you, the nose goes down and the airplane descends. Roll means tilting left or right. If you turn the yoke left, the airplane banks left. If you turn it right, it banks right. Does that make sense? I think so. Pull back to go up, push forward to go down, turn left to go left, turn right to go right. Exactly. But Emma, here's the most important thing, every movement should be small and gentle. Airplanes don't like sudden movements. You make tiny adjustments, wait for the airplane to respond, then make another tiny adjustment. Never jerk the controls. Never make big movements. Small and gentle. Can you remember that? Small and gentle. Okay. Good. Now, I want you to very gently put your hands on the yoke. Not to move it, just to feel it. Don't pull or push or turn. Just hold it lightly. Emma reached out with both hands and grasped the yoke. It felt solid and heavy. I'm holding it. Good. Do you feel a slight resistance? That's the autopilot. It's still flying the airplane. The yoke will move slightly on its own as the autopilot makes adjustments. That's normal. Just let it move. Don't fight it. Emma felt the yoke move very slightly to the left, then back to center. It was eerie, like the airplane was alive. Now, Emma, I need to teach you about the throttles. Look at the center console between the two pilot seats. You should see three large levers. Those are the throttle levers. They control engine power. Do you see them? Emma looked down. Three black levers with ridged grips stuck up from the console. Yes, I see three levers. Wait, three. There should only be two. A 777 has two engines, so two throttle levers. There are definitely three levers. Hayes frowned. Can you describe them? They're black. They have grooves on them for your fingers. They're all pushed forward. Emma, the middle lever might be the speed brake. Don't touch that one. The two outer levers are the throttles. The one on the far left controls the left engine. The one on the far right controls the right engine. Those are the ones that matter. Okay. Right now, those throttles are set by the autopilot. But if you needed to slow down, you would pull them back toward you. If you needed to speed up, you would push them forward. But Emma, you don't touch them unless I tell you to. Understand? Yes, sir. Good. Now, I'm going to teach you about something called trim. This is very important. Trim is how you make the airplane want to fly straight and level without having to hold the yoke. Do you see a wheel on the side of the center console? It's usually black and about the size of a dinner plate. Emma looked. There was indeed a large wheel mounted horizontally on the console. I see it. That's the trim wheel. If the airplane starts to feel heavy, like it wants to dive down, you roll that wheel backward toward you. If the airplane feels like it wants to climb, you roll it forward away from you. The trim wheel helps you balance the airplane. We'll practice that later. Okay. Hayes took a deep breath. This was the hardest part. Emma, now I need to teach you about landing. Landing an airplane is the most difficult thing a pilot does. It requires precise control of altitude, airspeed, and descent rate. Do you know what descent rate means? How fast you're going down. Exactly. When you land, you want to descend at about 700 feet per minute. That means you're going down 700 feet every minute. Not too fast, not too slow. Just right. How do I control that? With the yoke and the throttles. If you're descending too fast, you pull back slightly on the yoke and add a little power with the throttles. If you're descending too slow, you push forward slightly on the yoke and reduce power. It's a balance. A dance between the yoke and the throttles. Emma felt overwhelmed. There's so much to remember. I know, sweetheart. But I'm going to walk you through every single step when the time comes. Right now, I just need you to understand the basics. Emma, have you ever heard of a flight simulator? Yes. It's like a video game where you practice flying. Exactly. Well, right now, we're going to do something similar. I'm going to have you practice some very basic maneuvers while the autopilot is still on. This will help you get a feel for the controls without any danger. Are you ready? I guess so. Alright. I want you to disconnect the autopilot. On the control yoke, right where your thumbs rest, there should be a button or switch labeled AP Disk, or just Disk. Do you see it? Emma's heart started pounding. You want me to turn off the autopilot? Yes, but only for a few minutes. We need you to practice. We'll turn it back on after. Can you find the button? Emma looked at the yoke. On the back side, where her thumbs naturally rested, she found a red button labeled A/P Disk. I found it. It's red. Perfect. When you press that button, the autopilot will disconnect and you'll be flying manually. But Emma, the airplane won't fall out of the sky. It will keep doing whatever it was doing. It will just respond to your inputs now instead of the autopilot. Do you understand? Yes. Okay. On the count of 3, I want you to press that button. 1, 2, 3, press it now. Emma pressed the button. A loud beeping sound filled the cockpit. The autopilot disconnect warning. Emma gasped and almost let go of the yoke. That's normal. Hayes said quickly. That beeping is just telling you the autopilot is off. It will stop in a few seconds. Just hold the yoke steady. Don't pull or push. Just hold it where it is. Emma gripped the yoke tightly, her knuckles white. The beeping stopped after 5 seconds. The airplane continued flying straight and level. You're doing it, Emma. You're flying the airplane. Emma looked at the instruments. The altitude held steady at 35,000. The airspeed showed 485. The artificial horizon line was perfectly level. I'm flying. Yes. Right now, you are the pilot. The airplane is responding to you. Now, I want you to try something very small. Very gently, just barely, turn the yoke to the right. Just a tiny bit. Like turning a doorknob just a little. Emma turned the yoke maybe half an inch to the right. The airplane began to bank. The artificial horizon line tilted. The right wing dipped down, and the left wing rose up. I see it. The airplane is turning. Perfect. Now center the yoke again. Bring it back to neutral. Emma centered the yoke. The wings leveled out. Excellent. Emma, you just performed your first intentional maneuver. You made the airplane bank and then leveled it out. That's amazing. Emma felt a tiny spark of confidence. Maybe she could do this. Maybe. Now, let's try pitch. Very gently, pull the yoke back toward you. Just a little bit. Maybe 1 inch. Emma pulled back slowly. The nose of the airplane rose. The artificial horizon line moved down on the display. I see the nose coming up. Good. Now check your altitude. What does it say? Emma looked at the altimeter. It's going up. 35,100. Perfect. You're climbing. Now push the yoke forward to where it was before. Level it out. Emma pushed forward. The nose dropped. The altitude stabilized. You're a natural, Emma. You just controlled pitch. Now, let's practice descending. Push the yoke forward just a tiny bit. Just 1 inch. Emma pushed forward gently. The nose dropped. The altimeter started decreasing, 35,000. 34,900, 34,800. I'm going down. Yes. Now pull back and stop the descent. Level out again. Emma pulled back. The nose rose. The descent stopped at 34,700 feet. Perfect. Emma, you just proved to yourself that you can control this airplane. You can make it turn, climb, and descend. Those are the basic building blocks of flying. Everything else is just combining those skills. Now, let's turn the autopilot back on so we can plan our next steps. Emma felt relieved. How do I turn it back on? On the center console, on the autopilot panel, there should be a button labeled AP or Autopilot. Do you see it? Emma found a button labeled CMD. There's one that says CMD. That's it. Press it. Emma pressed the button. The autopilot re-engaged. The yoke moved slightly in her hands as the autopilot took control again. The altitude climbed back to 35,000. The autopilot is back on, Hayes confirmed. Emma, you did an incredible job. You just flew a Boeing 777. How do you feel? Scared. But also, I don't know. Maybe like I can do this. You absolutely can do this. Emma, I need to tell you something. Your parents have been unconscious for about 37 minutes now. The oxygen is helping them, but they haven't woken up yet. Emma's brief confidence evaporated. Are they okay? They're still breathing. But Emma, we need to start thinking about where you're going to land. We can't wait until you run out of fuel. We need to plan this carefully. Where can I land? Hayes looked at the map. You're currently 1,100 miles west of Los Angeles and about 1,200 miles east of Hawaii. If you continue toward Tokyo, you'll eventually run out of fuel over the Pacific. We need to turn you around and get you back to land. You want me to fly back to California? Not California. That's too far. But we can get you to Hawaii. That's only about 3 hours away. There's a U.S. Air Force base there with a very long runway. We can guide you there, and you can land safely. Emma tried to imagine landing an airplane. A massive, heavy airplane carrying 204 people. The thought made her want to throw up. Emma, are you still with me? Yes, sir. Good. Now, we need to wake up the flight attendants and let them know what's happening. We need them to keep the passengers calm. Can you reach the interphone? It's usually a handset on the side of the pilot's seats. Emma found a white phone handset mounted near her right shoulder. I found it. Pick it up and press the button labeled cabin or attend. That will ring in the galley where the flight attendants are. Emma picked up the handset. Her hands were shaking again. She pressed the button labeled attend. The phone rang 3 times. Then a sleepy voice answered, "Cockpit, this is Brenda." Emma's voice trembled. Hi. This is Emma. I'm the pilot's daughter. A pause. Emma. What are you doing on the interphone? Where are your parents? They're unconscious. Both of them. They can't wake up. I need help. Another pause. Then Brenda's voice became sharp and alert. What? Both pilots are unconscious. Emma, is this a joke? No. It's not a joke. Please, you need to come up here. I'm coming right now. Emma hung up the phone. 30 seconds later, she heard pounding on the cockpit door. Emma. Open the door. Emma looked at the door control panel. There was a keypad and a switch. She had no idea how to open it. Captain Hayes, the flight attendant, is at the door. How do I open it? There should be a toggle switch near the door. Move it to the unlocked position. Emma found the switch and flipped it. The cockpit door lock clicked open. Immediately, the door burst open and a woman in a flight attendant uniform rushed in. Brenda was 34 years old with short blonde hair. She had been a flight attendant for 12 years. She had handled medical emergencies, difficult passengers, even a small fire in a lavatory once. But she had never seen this: both pilots slumped unconscious in their seats wearing oxygen masks, and an 11-year-old girl sitting in the co-pilot seat with a headset on. "Oh my God," Brenda whispered. "Oh my God. What happened?" "They just fell asleep," Emma said. "The people on the radio said it's carbon monoxide poisoning." Brenda checked both pilots for pulses. Both were alive. Both were breathing. "How long have they been out?" "About 40 minutes. Brenda's face went pale. "Who's flying the airplane?" "The autopilot. And I'm learning." "You're 11 years old." "I know. But there's nobody else." Brenda looked at the instruments, then at the unconscious pilots, then at Emma. The situation was impossible. Impossible. But it was happening. "What do you need me to do?" Brenda asked. "Captain Hayes," Emma said into her headset, "the flight attendant is here." "What should I tell her?" Hayes responded, "Emma, tell her that she needs to keep the passengers calm. We don't want a panic. Tell her to wake the senior flight attendant and brief the entire crew quietly. They need to prepare the cabin for an emergency landing. Secure all loose items. Make sure passengers are belted in. But they can't tell the passengers that the pilots are unconscious. Not yet. Just say we're landing in Hawaii due to a mechanical issue. Can you tell her that?" Emma repeated the instructions to Brenda. Brenda nodded slowly. Okay. Okay. I'll handle the cabin." "Emma, are you really going to land this airplane?" "I'm going to try." "You're the bravest person I've ever met." Brenda squeezed Emma's shoulder, then left the cockpit, closing the door behind her. Emma was alone again with her unconscious parents and a radio connection to people 1,100 miles away who were trying to save her life. "Captain Hayes, I'm ready. What do I do now?" Hayes took a deep breath. "Now, Emma, we're going to turn you toward Hawaii. And we're going to teach you how to land an airplane." The clock on the instrument panel showed 3:47 a.m. local time. Flight 827 had been in the air for 4 hours and 0 minutes. Emma's parents had been unconscious for 1 hour and 13 minutes. The fuel gauges showed 160,000 pounds remaining, approximately 7 hours and 15 minutes of flying time. Captain Hayes studied the navigation chart on his computer screen. Flight 827's current position put them 1,160 miles west of Los Angeles and 1,080 miles east-northeast of Honolulu. If he could guide Emma to turn the aircraft toward Hawaii and descend to a lower altitude to conserve fuel, she could make it with fuel to spare. But first, she had to successfully turn a 547,000-pound aircraft without entering a dangerous bank angle or losing altitude control. "Emma, are you ready to learn how to turn the airplane?" Hayes asked. "Yes, sir." "Good. Remember how you practiced small turns earlier? This is going to be the same thing, just held for longer. I'm going to have you disconnect the autopilot again. But this time, you're going to make a real turn. A turn that will point you toward Hawaii." Emma's heart raced. "Okay. Before we do that, I need you to understand something about turns. When an airplane turns, it has to bank. That means one wing goes down and one wing goes up, like you practiced before. But banking creates a problem. The lift from the wings is now tilted sideways instead of straight up. That means you have to pull back slightly on the yoke to maintain altitude. Do you understand?" "I think so. When I turn, I have to pull back a little." "Exactly. Not too much, just enough to keep the nose from dropping. Now, I'm going to have you turn to a heading of 240 degrees. Right now you're flying at 261 degrees. So you need to turn left 21 degrees. That's not a big turn, maybe 30 seconds of banking. Are you ready?" "I'm ready." "Okay. Press the autopilot disconnect button." Emma pressed the button. The warning beep sounded and stopped. She was flying manually again. "Now, very slowly, turn the yoke to the left. Maybe 2 inches. And as you turn it, pull back slightly, maybe 1 inch." Emma turned the yoke left and pulled back. The airplane banked to the left. The artificial horizon line tilted. The heading indicator began to decrease, 261. 260, 259. "Perfect, Emma. You're turning. Keep that bank angle steady. Don't turn the yoke any further. Just hold it right where it is." Emma held the yoke steady. The heading continued to change, 256. 253, 250. "How am I doing?" "Beautifully. Keep watching the heading. When it reaches 240, you're going to start rolling out of the turn. That means turning the yoke back to the right to level the wings. 247, 244. 241, 240. Okay, it's at 240. Perfect. Now roll out. Turn the yoke back to the right until the wings are level." Emma turned the yoke right. The artificial horizon line came back to horizontal. The heading stabilized at 240 degrees. "I did it." "Yes, you did. Emma, you just turned a Boeing 777. You're officially a pilot now. How does your altitude look?" Emma checked the altimeter. "It says 35,100 feet. Is that okay?" "That's perfect. You climbed just a little bit during the turn, but that's fine. Now let's re-engage the autopilot. Press the CMD button." Emma pressed it. The autopilot took over again. "Excellent work, Emma. Now the autopilot is flying you toward Hawaii. You're about 1,080 miles away. At your current speed, that's about 2 hours and 20 minutes of flying time. Emma felt a small wave of relief. 2 hours. That wasn't too long. Maybe her parents would wake up by then. But Emma, Hayes continued, we have another problem. You're at 35,000 feet. When you get close to Hawaii, you're going to need to descend to land. That descent needs to be gradual and controlled. We're going to start descending soon, even though we're still far away. We'll descend slowly over many miles. How do I descend with the autopilot on? I'll teach you. On the autopilot control panel, there's a knob or button labeled Alt or Altitude. Do you see it? Emma found a knob with Alt printed above it. Yes. That knob controls the target altitude for the autopilot. Right now it's set to 35,000 feet. We're going to change it to 10,000 feet. To do that, you turn the knob counterclockwise. Each click will decrease the altitude by 100 feet. So you'll need to turn it 250 clicks. That's going to take a while. 250 clicks. Can't I just turn it faster? You could, but I want you to do it slowly so we can watch and make sure everything works correctly. Start turning it now. Just keep clicking it counterclockwise. Emma started turning the knob. Click. 34,900, click. 34,800, click. 34,700, she kept turning. The number decreased steadily. After 5 minutes of clicking, she reached 10,000 feet. Okay, it says 10,000 now. Good. Now, next to that knob, there should be a button or switch labeled V/S or vert speed. That stands for vertical speed, which is how fast you descend. Do you see it? Yes, there's a button that says V/S. Press it. Emma pressed the button. A new number appeared on the autopilot panel, -500. Good. That means the autopilot is now commanding a descent at 500 feet per minute. That's a nice gentle descent. It will take you about 50 minutes to get down to 10,000 feet. And the airplane will start descending automatically. You should feel the nose drop slightly. Emma felt the airplane nose over gently. The altimeter began to decrease, 34,900. 34,800, 34,700. It's working. We're going down. Perfect. Emma, you're doing everything exactly right. Now, while we're descending, I need to explain what's going to happen when we reach Hawaii. Emma checked the airspeed indicator. It's slowing down. It was 310, now it's 305. 300. Good. The flaps create drag, which slows you down. Now, move the lever back to 0. Retract the flaps. Emma moved the lever back. The whirring sound again, then smooth flight. Perfect. You just extended and retracted the flaps. We'll do that for real during landing. For the next 45 minutes, Captain Hayes walked Emma through procedures. How to extend the landing gear. How to use the speed brakes to slow down quickly. How to read the approach charts. How to set up the radios for landing. Emma's brain felt overloaded. There was so much to remember. At 5,000 feet, Hayes had her level off. The autopilot held the altitude steady. Emma could see the ocean now through breaks in the clouds. Endless blue water stretching to the horizon. Emma, we're 150 miles from Hawaii. You should start to see the island soon. Emma stared ahead. For several minutes, she saw only ocean. Then, faintly in the distance, she saw it, a dark smudge on the horizon. Land. I see it. I see the island. That's Oahu, where Honolulu is located. That's where you're landing. Emma, we're going to start the approach soon. Are you ready? I don't know. Emma, I need you to be ready. 198 passengers are depending on you. Your parents are depending on you. Can you be brave for just a little longer? Emma looked at her mother's unconscious face. She thought about all the times her mother had told her, "You can do hard things, Emma. You're stronger than you know." "Yes," Emma said. "I can be brave." "Good. Now, let's bring this airplane home." Hickam Air Force Base, located just west of Honolulu International Airport, had been placed on full emergency alert. 16 fire trucks lined the runway. Ambulances stood ready. Military helicopters circled overhead. News cameras recorded everything from a safe distance. Everyone knew what was coming, an 11-year-old girl attempting to land a Boeing 777. Inside the aircraft, the cabin was tense. The flight attendants had finally told the passengers what was happening. Some passengers cried. Some prayed. Some sat in stunned silence. A few tried to stay calm, but everyone knew the odds weren't good. In the cockpit, Emma's hands gripped the control yoke. She had disconnected the autopilot 5 minutes ago. She was flying manually now, and would be until the wheels touched the ground. Below her, the island of Oahu grew larger. She could see buildings, roads, the airport. Captain Hayes was talking to her constantly, guiding every move. "Emma, you're at 3,000 feet, 15 miles from the runway. I need you to extend flaps to 5. Emma moved the flap lever to 5. The airplane shuddered. She pushed forward slightly on the yoke to maintain attitude. "Good. Now, I need you to slow to 180 knots. Pull the throttles back gently." Emma pulled the throttles back. The airspeed decreased, 210. 200, 190. 180. Perfect. "Emma, at 10 miles, you're going to extend the landing gear. The lever is next to the flap lever. It's shaped like a wheel. Can you find it?" Emma found a lever shaped like a tire. "I found it. When I tell you, move it to the down position." But not yet. The runway was visible now, a long strip of concrete stretching across the landscape. Emergency vehicles lined both sides, their lights flashing. "Emma, 10 miles. Extend the landing gear now." Emma moved the lever down. A loud rumbling sound filled the cockpit as the massive landing gear deployed. 3 green lights illuminated on the panel. 3 green lights. Emma called out. "Perfect. The gear is down and locked. Now, extend flaps to 15. Emma moved the flap lever. More shuddering. Airspeed 170 knots. Altitude 2,000 feet. You're on glide path, Emma. You're doing this perfectly." The runway grew larger. Emma could see individual markings on the concrete. Flaps to 25. Emma extended the flaps further. The airplane slowed. Airspeed 155 knots. Altitude 1,000 feet. Emma's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the yoke steady. "Emma, I need you to listen very carefully now. When you cross the runway threshold, you'll be at about 50 feet altitude. I'm going to count down the altitude. When I say 20 feet, I want you to slowly pull back on the yoke. Gently raise the nose. The airplane will settle onto the runway. Do you understand?" "Yes." "Good. Flaps to 30. Full landing configuration." Emma extended the flaps to maximum. The airplane slowed to 145 knots. Altitude 500 feet. Half a mile to go. You're lined up perfectly, Emma. The runway threshold approached rapidly. Emma could see the numbers painted on the concrete, 26L. 300 feet. Quarter mile. Emma's heart pounded so hard she thought it would explode. 200 feet. You're doing great. The runway rushed up toward her. 100 feet. 50 feet. Emma, start your flare. Pull back gently. Emma pulled back on the yoke. The nose rose. The descent slowed. 30 feet. 20 feet. 10 feet. The main wheels touched the runway with a jarring thump. The airplane bounced once, came down again, and stayed down. Pull the throttles back. All the way. Emma yanked the throttles back to idle. Step on the brakes. The pedals at your feet. Emma pressed her feet on the brake pedals. Nothing happened. Harder. Push as hard as you can. Emma stood on the brakes with all her weight. The airplane began to slow. The end of the runway approached. Too fast. They were going too fast. Keep pressing. You're slowing down. The tires screamed. The brakes smoked. The airplane decelerated, 100 knots. 80, 60. 40. At 20 knots, with 1,000 feet of runway remaining, Flight 827 rolled to a stop. Emma sat in the co-pilot's seat, her whole body shaking, tears streaming down her face. "Emma, you did it," Captain Hayes said, his voice thick with emotion. "You saved everyone." Captain David Rodriguez woke up 17 minutes after Emma landed the airplane. He didn't remember anything after feeling dizzy at the controls. When he saw where they were, and learned what his daughter had done, he wept. Captain Maria Rodriguez woke up 22 minutes later with the same reaction. Both pilots recovered fully. The carbon monoxide leak was traced to the faulty seal in the environmental control system. The maintenance technician who had installed it incorrectly was retrained. Emma Rodriguez became the youngest person ever to successfully land a commercial aircraft. She was invited to the White House. She received awards from the FAA, the Air Force, and the state of Hawaii. She appeared on every news program in the world. But what she remembered most was sitting in that hospital room with her parents, all three of them crying. Her parents telling her over and over, "We're so proud of you." 6 months later, Emma went back to being an 11-year-old girl. She returned to school. She played with her friends. She did homework. She watched movies. But she never forgot the night she saved 204 lives. And when people asked if she wanted to be a pilot when she grew up, she smiled and said no. She wanted to be a veterinarian. Because Emma Rodriguez had already proven she could fly an airplane. Now she wanted to save animals instead.